Hi, everyone who has joined here. This is our live Instagram series, which we're going to starting from today to share some insights about how you could start the career even in the COVID times. So let's have some more people joined in very soon. So we're expecting a lot of participation to start ahead with today. So yeah, the interesting thing is I know everybody is having tough times, not only at academics or at industry. So everybody is going through their own challenges. But yeah, end of the day, it's a challenge for somebody. But you have to sort of still survive and get and start with your career. I think just to do that, it's quite tough in terms of competition. So I've been interacting with a lot of students, maybe let's say about 8,000 odd students we have interacted in last 6 months through lms.decibelslab.com. I just thought it would be a great way that I've helped a lot of people to even kickstart their internships and careers even in the current situation being tough. And the same has been asked by many other learners and students. I just thought, why don't we just sort of come in with a small sort of live webinar, I would say live session. Webinars been constantly used because we've been doing webinars, and this is our first ever live on YouTube. I'm sorry if that is not getting into a structure, but definitely I would try to do best as possible to keep it going very well. So yeah, we have about 21 right now, so we still getting joined by some more people. We plan to start this at 6, so we should be starting at 6. So if you have interesting questions to drop here, so I'm always quite happy to take them in, and before we sort of start ahead with our detailed discussions on how you could really kick in your career and how those possibilities can be easily started. I have made some slides. I just thought I could just bump them in the live, but I think it seems to be a little difficult to bump them into the live. So I have my other screen panel here. Possibly I'll just go through them and try to be as interactive as possible. Yeah, thanks everybody who have joined in. So hey, just drop us in any questions, and let's say what brings you to here for today's live. Maybe any of your questions and comments are always great, and I could just take them in and maybe wrap them around our discussions for a few minutes. Yeah. Okay, so we have Akash, I think. Yeah. So I'm really finding it hard to get a job. Yeah, mate, I think it's really tough. Not only you at the one side, I think everybody having tough time to cope up with, I would say, our current situation. It's true, it's tough. I think the only thing which I was always been planning to have is what you could be doing, sort of sustain it, or possibly what you could be doing to get over it. So that's something I want to talk today. So great. So I think we have one more person. So Beja, do you have any international collaborations? So no, we haven't intended to have some collaborations. So, but yeah, our whole team works in various parts of the world. So we have Venu who sits in Sweden, and other people in other parts of the world. So we don't really have something, I would say, as a collaboration. I don't think so. It's something necessary for sure. Great. So awesome. So we have Srijit have a question that how can we enter electric vehicle industry as a triple E fresher? That's a very interesting question, Srijit. I mean, very specific. I'm very glad that you're able to ask a question that you're very focused that you want to be in one industry. That's EV. It's really good, and that's what Decibels has been working on. See, I don't intended to address this discussion very technically, that what you can do to start a sector specific career. Maybe let's say in EV, or let's say if you do it in anything in automotive, or let's say design or FEA or CFD. It would be quite tough to sort of answer it's very specifically, because I could have another live discussions on how you can start a career in EV. But I think I would give you some insights on what in overall you could do to start your career. Yeah, so that's what something I can suggest to you, because I know this would be really interesting if I could answer that to you. But yeah, I think it's very specific, and it requires a lot of reasoning behind it and understanding what is your profile and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure, I would be definitely happy to answer that maybe in another live session. Yeah. So so I want to start BMS. How would I start it? Wow. Okay, that's really great. So this is really good that you guys have specific target that where you want to be. But the same way, I think it requires a little more deeper dive in. It depends upon if you are from background of ENC, if you're a background of mechanical engineering, or if you're a background in electrical, or even if you take a specialization in MTech. So that depends just around that, because if you take BMS, it's about hardware, it's about software, drivers and algorithms and things like that. So it would require modeling the loop. That could be done by maybe a guy from mechanical background, and again it requires a lot of softwares for device drivers and stuff like that. And then on top of it, you have a lot of safety and also features such as diagnostics. It's a very complex thing. I would be just suggesting you something that try to get a little more focus on what you want to do inside that specific areas of battery management system. Maybe that would sort of give you an answer. And also maybe just out of the blue, go to some of the company websites, like in the sector of EV, like any of the suppliers who are manufacturing BMS. I think I might have shared that one webinar in YouTube. So if you visit there is a webinar where I've talked about some of the sectors such as BMS. I've mentioned some of the suppliers. Just go there, check in the details about if they have job roles. Just check in what type of job roles and what skill sets are they demanding for. I think by that way you could just wrap around the requirements what industry has, and then you could definitely have your focus towards that specific area. So yeah, if I can answer you that question, so you got a little bit more focused on what section of BMS you want to work in, and then you got to have your skills wrapped around that. Yeah, so that's what I would say if you want to be part of the BMS. I'm sorry if I'm going a little out of the topic for other guys, because I would like to have today questions in I would say general, because something very specific to a sector is quite challenging, because it just goes so deeper. Yeah, so and just it takes some time to come out of that discussions. So amazing. So we have quite a lot of people joining in. Let me just check. Yeah, we have just 1 minute to start ahead our discussions. Awesome. So we have Akash back here. I'm a design and simulation engineer. I also like to be a part of automotive and EV sector. What's the first form action to be taken? Great. So if you already have some skill sets, somebody like Akash who have just dropped the message there, if you're very specifically focused already into an area, because that's what my today's discussions are also about. Yeah, you have to sort of now take a step ahead and getting to know what sort of roles are there for you, and then wrap around those options. Because if you have your resume ready, which is totally competitive, if you feel that it's just perfect, then I think the next step is, okay, where do I apply? Right? So it just becomes like, okay, I don't know, where do I start? Because I think something same happened to me, and when I graduated. So yeah, the resume is good, but I don't know, where do I apply? Whom do I contact? Where do I start? I think that's where you need to possibly look in. So that's the skills of networking, maybe. Yeah, you could take your things into a place to an execution cycle to get the job. And that's what I would suggest to you, Akash. Maybe if you feel that you are having great competency, so the next is think about how possibly you could look for networking, and then possibly from there you could start your career. Most companies ask for experienced person, but they don't consider freshers. It will be not give us an opportunity to how to get an experience. Exactly. That's a very good question, Varun, and definitely an explanation of the current situation. So how somebody like a fresher could start in something, you know, not sarcastically, but in reality, just to express it, people say, hey, where did you spend your ninth semester? Where did you spend your 10th semester? I think that's how people been talking. When I talk to a lot of friends around in the hiring when they're trying to look for, because after spending like 8 semesters, you gotta still spend a ninth and 10th one. So that's what something been happening. And during those time, people are trying to get some experiences and trying to get wet on their skills, and then they can talk it as experience. So I'll give you some insights on that. Yeah. So how you could be really compelling to overcome that word of asking an experience, and how we can possibly have an experience without having worked somewhere. Yeah. So maybe I'm just helping out in the same way with other people. I'll try to give you some insights on that. Awesome. So I think we have fantastic people joining in. Right, guys, I think great questions. I would love if I could just answer all of them. So I would just try the best to be in interaction with everybody. I think it's 6 right now. Yeah, so we should be starting ahead with our discussions. Yeah. So first thing first, let's get started. So I have something to refer on my right. So the first thing is, I have asked you a question that what really interests you to take part in this live session. So you answered me a lot of things. It's good to know. So let's start ahead with the first thing that is the situation tough? Yeah, I mean, if I have to tell you, the situation is really tough, because about like 60 lakh odd people have lost their jobs, and maybe a lot of other people are on bench. That is the situation right now at the industry. That means, yeah, it is tough. And as I interact with a lot of my friends who are working there, and they also express that they are finding it challenging to find and kickstart on the new projects. So that means like the new projects are lesser, and as in the situation around in countries, so we depend upon service sector too much. That means if there is less projects, and it's going to be tough for the companies to survive and hold on. So yeah, if I answer you overall, yeah, it's tough. And are we recovering back? Yeah, we are recovering back, and the recovery takes some time. And there are a few sectors where they are very badly affected, and there are a few sectors which are recovering quicker because of the basic needs and supply demand which they have been serving to. So, but apart from it, yeah, things are trying to get back on the track. But yeah, if you see in the hiring scenario, a lot of things have changed. But still, not every company is working full on blow in terms of having all of their employees back in office. Still, work from home is still going on. This is what's been happening. It means it is still under the phase of recovery, and it is going to take some more time to fully back on steam. So as we predict, I think things are going to be continued for even a little bit of a next financial year, because they're going to be a post-COVID impacts. Yeah, so it takes some time to recovery. So yeah, it's the situation is tough, and if you are right now graduating. If you're graduated, I think, because graduation happens usually in June, July, I think some students still graduating because of exams that is not done yet. I think something who are going to be graduating next year, it's going to be a situation for all of you too. As I was telling that in the video in the very beginning, so you're in a situation, you're in a worse situation if you're trying to be entering into an industry. It's tough for everybody, yeah. So it's quite tough, and it's quite competitive also, because imagine that a lot of companies have offloaded their employees, and now all of them are available at a lesser employment cost. So companies are okay, I have a little bit of experienced person, because it's very tough actually to hire somebody and have them train remotely. You understand what is the meaning of training remotely, because it's so tough that you hire a person and have them trained on all your requirements and get them into your project. It takes a lot of time, right? So it's better to hire somebody who has little experience. But again, the question comes, what do I goddamn do as a fresher, right? So that's what we'll talk today, and how it's going to happen. So it means that you're going to be in a competitive situation, and the only thing which can help you out to survive this competitive situation is having some of right skills and right things on your resume. So let's talk about those things in the next. So let's take is the hiring still going on? That's another topic. Yeah, definitely the hiring is still going on. If you see, be active on LinkedIn, you could see a lot of people posting, and I know the frequency is very less, but yeah, there are opportunities still open up, and things can be really pursued upon, because there is attrition. If you not understand the word called attrition, so it means it's always there, and there has to be openings, and industries can't keep quiet. Why? Because if they are not competitive at this time, and they offload their research and development, offload their new product development, offload their existing customers, so they're gonna have tough times to come back. Somebody who survives at that situation will be just dominating overall, right? So they just can't keep quiet. So they have to have new projects coming in, and they have to support still existing customers. So it means that they require engineers, right? So that means, yeah, they require you to be on roles. So there is a hiring going on. It's not like hiring has freeze totally. There is a hiring going on. I think I have some of the students supported. I've supported some of the students in the last few months, and all of them starting their careers too. So hiring is still going on. It's not something that has just stopped. But the challenging thing is that it's very people are trying to ask you too many skills, and they're possibly trying to offer a bit lesser on the packages, and those are theirs, which is in the current situation. So they want to be a little bit experienced in a few other areas, and a couple of multi-domain skills and stuff like that. So can you handle like few 2-3 things together? So I think that's something is going on. But yeah, hiring is still going on. That's what I could promise you. Great. So that brings the next hot topic. That would be, with all this situation, how do I start? And how do I start is basically, you could just always think about an end goal, that how do I get a job? But for that, you got to start your preparation. I think the part of your preparation is, I would say, let's say resume. And when I say resume, that should be a compelling resume. And that compelling resume can attract a guy who's hiring for a position, right? Let's say I'm posting something, so there are 10 people applying for the position, but something that is compelling on your resume, okay? And maybe I know it's 0 to 2 years bandwidth, it's very clear. So there is a guy who's applied for 2 years also, but there's a student who have just fresher on who I've applied to. But the thing is, I'm looking for very specific. The guy who have like 2 years of experience may have worked on something which is very specific, but I don't want that to be very specific. I wanted somebody who have a bit of exposure to things, that's something which possibly matches in the fresher. So the thing is, there has to be something which is very compelling to pick your resume up and to call you up for an interview. So now let's talk about those things and what those things are, which is really compelling. So the first and very important thing I always look for when I'm hiring is what have you done more than academics? So everybody have a great academic scores, and we know fantastic that how our current ecosystem of academics is. So that's great, yeah. So let's not talk about it. So the always thing I look for is no, if you just put your first explanation, okay, I got this much percentage, I completed my graduate degree here, all these things. No, I'm possibly interested to know which department of engineering you have studied, possibly, or MTech you have studied. But apart from it, nothing really I really look for when I'm trying to hire somebody into a place. So what I look for, okay, first thing, what have you done something more than academics? Right, that's a really important thing which I always look for. So now if you're a fresher and if you're still looking forward to graduate, the first thing you need to ask for yourself is what is that I have something on my resume which is apart from my academics, okay? So that's the very important point, right? So let's start from there. So what is that something you can have more than academics, okay? The first thing which would be the projects. So you need to have some of the projects on your resume. And what is the meaning of project? Yeah, so if you see a resume which is a fresher's resume, and a guy who is an intern somewhere, and the guy who is having 0 to 2 years of work experience, and the guy is something more than that, and the only thing which you can see in difference of all of them is basically a project, okay? So, and you could also call it as a domain specialization. So when you do your internship, right, so you're going to be working on something very specifically, and then you would be trying to work around that and trying to gain your expertise over that. And that's what you're trying to do. And you're trying to do that for a specific project, right? For example, I was working at Mercedes for the project through ITC. And it was very specific. When I graduated, I had no idea what these things are going to be. So I was an automotive plastic engineer. And in that automotive plastics, I was like exterior design engineer. In that exterior design, I was trying to work in front bumpers and components, things like that. So there are other engineers who are working on different internal components of the front bumper and things like that. So we are all called as sort of, the project guys in specific area. Well, my badge after 2 years of experience was like, automotive plastic interior design engineer. Okay, so that's what my tag was, right? How did the tag arrive? The tag was arrived because I was working in a very specific project, right? So now, how can you do that as a fresher? How can you do even without graduating and being at a college or something like that? So that's possible is by knowing that you could be as an intern, so during your period of academics, and that sort of brings you in to an idea where you'll be able to possibly jump in a little dive, and then you can have some of your hands wet on certain areas of projects. Now, I know it's tough because how could somebody take you in as an intern when even they are not taking their full-time employees into the company, right? It's honestly a right question to be asked. The thing is, there are a lot of other ways you can start, you can do the project. Maybe you could be a part of your college competitions where the student competitions are there, like SAE, BAHA, or FSAE, are like, because I'm from a mechanical or automotive background, so I know those things, and there are a lot of other competitions too where you can be a part of it. So when you're trying to be a part of it, you're trying to be focused onto one area, right? You're a suspension guy, you're a steering guy, you're a powertrain guy. Maybe let's say on the coding part of it, there are a lot of competitions on that side. So you're working on a very specific area, right? So when you're trying to work on a very specific area, that becomes your project. And if you have that project on your resume, and that's what I would look for, that's what I think a lot of my friends in the hiring circle was always telling, they would look for it. Because why I tell you is like, it gives you a lot of exposure and experience. And that's something what experienced guy has. When you do something as a project, so it just keeps you through a lot of failures, You fail, you don't get an answer, so you go back, you try to ask your friend, you try to rework back. Maybe you have like 30, 60, 80, 100 iterations all in place. So what is that sort of building you is it's sort of building you an experience, okay? And you could definitely, and you can proudly mention that on your resume that you work on these projects. When you say as a project, it has to be very intensive. You could just define how many number of hours you worked on. Now, what sort of software tools you have used during that phase, and maybe who was your mentors, and what was your challenging things and you have solved during those projects. That's what I see when I see a resume. The first thing, you have done this project. During this project, okay, what kind of tools you have used, because that's very important for me, because I'm looking for a guy who is having those kind of a toolset knowledge. And there is something also I'm looking as a domain knowledge. That's how I'll come to the next topic. When I define that, okay, what sort of challenges you had in your project, and you're trying to solve those things, and you build that project across, and how many hours did you work on these things? Because it's very simple, right? The same way in the industry also does. So when they work on a project, they get paid per hour, something like that. And if they could mention, okay, I know this is how much you worked on that project into a place, this is how much you have an exposure into it. So that's something which is very compelling. So have projects there. I could take another live session on what projects they could do, because it's very specific to each area, and I don't want to sort of talk very in depth about each area of that. The important thing is projects. Okay, so first, right after your basic intro about yourself, the next thing is, okay, there are 3, 4, 5 projects which I've worked on. Okay, that looks very compelling for me. Okay, this guy has worked on, okay, let's say something on Python, using the Python, he or she has worked on this project and this many hours of time, and this is a topic area on that. Fantastic, great, right? So the next is you worked on MATLAB, you've done a few of the model-based design, great. And then maybe another area, you are involved in something on the possibly simulation and analysis of certain systems. You have done that. So this is what possibly every goddamn good resume should have. First to kickstart with a project, and that looks very positive for somebody who is looking forward to hire you. Let's go to the next one. So softwares and tools. So they're very important. If you're involved in a project, definitely you would be using like certain softwares and tools, and you got to use something which is more relevant to an industry, more focused to what you want to sort of start in the future. Let's say, like, this is something I want to get into an industry, and this specific sector of it, let's say model-based design. If you're trying to get into model-based design, look for companies, what sort of tools they're trying to use and software they're trying to use, and trying to get literally a good depth on those softwares and tools, because they're very important. Nobody can teach you like from fundamentals, hey, let's start Python. No, nobody does it, right? So it's not possible in any other way too. So it's really good if you have some focused software knowledge and tool knowledge. It could be in terms of a project management. Imagine you're all working remotely, and how I'm going to manage a project, right? If you had like sort of a project which I worked on, so that also would have used some project management tools and stuff like communication tools and things like that. So by that way, you have exposure to a project, and that project was requiring you to have certain software skills and also need to have certain tool skills. Now you've built up a very solid foundation on certain of your technical skills in this duration, right? So that's what a softwares and tools. So you should have a clarity, okay, this is a software possibly a machine learning industry is looking for. This is what of a possible softwares like an automotive industry is looking for. So this becomes very primary requirements when you look for an opportunity in the industry. So have a very specific tool set knowledge and a software skill set knowledge. And I always say, it doesn't really matter. So if you have got a certificate of course completion, but what I really look for is using that project, did you do something? Using the software, have you involved in some project? Okay. Because I know how possibly somebody could teach a software, right? Okay, take this line, draw it here, extend it, change this color, fantastic. Do some lines of code, fantastic. But no, until and unless you haven't failed many times in doing the things in the software, you never get a hands-on grip with it, right? So what it means is you gotta be very involved in using those software, some projects. It means trying to always learn in a project-based approach. What it is trying to do is it is trying to make you fail, and trying to get you failed multiple times, and you're basically gaining that self-experience of getting yourself into a better of yourself, right? And the other thing is, more you fail and more it gives you an opportunity to learn, right? If you are not failing, if you're in the comfort zone of being yourself, so you're basically not learning in that phase. Right, so get involved if you're starting with some software, and get them with the project-based approach. Cool. So that's what I'm trying to recommend to you if you're trying to be learning about softwares and tools. Yeah, learn it the project-based approach. So let me go over very quick to other areas, which is a domain orientation. It's a very important term. So I'm not sure if you're noting it down. I'll try to share these slides across in the Instagram, so you could definitely have them with you. So the topic is basically domain orientation. So what is a domain, right? I goddamn did not know when I graduated. Okay, so it's like, oh, domain. Okay, what's that exactly, right? It's a very new topic to be called as domain for a fresh engineering graduate. But when I started to get into a sector, right? So as I told you, I was having a tag of automotive exterior plastic design engineer. I was just working in the areas of plastic design, not into plastic FEA, not into plastic like manufacturing simulations. I was not into tool design. No, this is what I call as a domain. It is so big, it is so vast when you're trying to execute something into a reality and do a product development in the reality. That's why I always say learning theoretically is always fantastic. Hey, how does a car build? Oh, it just goes through these processes and it's done. But do you really know it takes like 4 or 5 years and at least about 10,000 crores of investment, and possibly about other 4,000, 5,000 odd engineers and everybody else working in the sector to get one car out of the line, right? So it's just so challenging, and reality is really tough when you're trying to develop a product. So it means I have that specialization in one area. So then I joined another project in ITC. So it was on automotive seating systems. So we used to work for Chrysler. It's a company in US. So like I was a seating engineer in that. So you take an automotive seat, right? I goddamn really did not know. Okay, in seating system you have just the seat where you sit in the car has so many complex things in that, and it takes about like 3-4 years for that product development to happen from concept to product stage. So in that seating systems, I was like, one, there's a mechanism team, there is a structure team, there's a foam team, there's a foam and trim team, and various different teams in that. Again, once each of these divisions have their FEA engineers, maybe they also have something like different teams who are involved in all these areas. We had like managers who have like 30 patents, 25 patents into it, but it still take like 3 years. So what exactly I'm trying to picturize you is, I'm just trying to be focused more on automotive. I'm sorry, because that's what my background is. And if you're an IT guy, so it could be like, okay, you take an example of a website development. Maybe there's a front end, there's a back end, then there are a lot of other things which comes into a picture. So you could be that domain specialist, right? Because this specific domain, if you take about front end, right? So there are specific softwares, right, which you will be using in. And in those softwares, again, there are certain things which is very easily done, which could be done very complicatedly, which could take time. And this is where it becomes domain orientation, domain specialization. So when you graduate, try to have that already on your resume. Okay, hey, I'm trying to be focused on in this sector. Okay, in EV example, right? So EV is just too broad, right? As I said, it's just too broad, because it takes like 5 years for product development cycle for all things to happen. If you're trying to say, okay, I want to be an engineer in the EV sector, okay, next thing is what in the EV specific sector. So that's how the things get focused upon. So if you're a domain guy, okay, I want to be in a batteries. Okay, what inside the batteries? So you want to be a cell testing engineer, a cell characterization engineer, you want to be a cell simulation engineer, you want to be a packaging design guy, you want to be a thermal guy, you want to be, what else, like working on crash of these batteries, a lot, right? So you want to be working on homologations and testings and certifications. A lot of these things will come into a picture, right? So that's what I say. If you are trying to be there, you're try to have a exposure a little before you graduate, okay? Because I'm not just telling too much about the league. I'm telling you something which you can really do, because this is what happens at foreign universities too. When you're trying to, you're trying to study, when you're trying to be in that, your master's degree or things like that, so they put you into very specific areas of work, so you get exactly the same exposure I'm trying to tell you right now. This is what is required, and if you have that, that's all what you need. You are on top of the list basically to get hired, right? So the meaning of this all discussion of the domain orientation is pretty simplistic, that you got to know what I want to be, and how do I know it is basically get yourself exposed to industry points, people at forums, talk to engineers on LinkedIn, and talk to people, try to figure out, okay, this is what is there in automotive. Okay, if you take a BIW, this is different things, and this is a powertrain division, these are different things. If it's a CAE, this is different things. This is a CFD, this is different things. Suspensions is different things, like maybe paint technology, interiors, exteriors, lightings, trims, wiring harness, safety, homologations, powertrain, MBD. It just becomes a lot, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is, like, there'll be jargons, so just don't worry about them. What I'm meant is, that gives you an idea, okay, I want to be in this. For example, if you do some project, that's what gets you into, okay? If you do a project on, let's say, crash analysis of a Formula Student car, so that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to analyze a vehicle if it can hold certain loads. That's what we do also at the industry. So you become focused towards that area. Like this, you could have multiple domain exposures, because as a fresher, it's tough for you to just be like, bulls in the eye. Okay, I want to be right here. It's fantastic, amazing guys out here who have competitive skills. But as I suggestion, so try to have skills which is little, like, scattered, so that you have possible opportunities, more opportunities to sort of pick them across, right? So have multiple domain exposures. That's what I mean in the parts of this one discussion. So I think so we have a lot of questions out here. I'll try to take them in. So one more point right out here is like the competition participation. So as trying to do all these things, as a domain orientation, software tools, projects, if you want to get all of these things onto your profile, you have to have something in your hand, right, to work on. And it's great and fantastic. You're a researcher, you have your faculty supporting you. It's amazing. But if you're not having all of that, then the complication things. Just excuse me for a second. I forgot to just pop my charger in, so my phone is just dying out. So let me just pop my charger in, and I believe we could just hold in this position. Okay, great. So I'm not sure if that comes in the same way. Cool. So what I meant is in terms of the competition, yeah. So you gotta be involved in something to get wet with skills, get wet with experience to work as a team, right? So the competitions are the greatest way to get you into that. Because why I tell you is it's like an industry, but it's just a miniature industry which is in your college itself. So try to build teams and try to participate in the competition right from, if you're guys from first year, second year, third year, doesn't matter. Start as early as possible. It's totally fine if you just pay the fees, go there, watch the competition, come back. It's totally fine, because why I'm telling you is you gotta sort of know first, right? It's like investing on something to start a journey, right? So I did the same thing when I was in college. I have like no clue what this goddamn thing about IIT Fest. I just motivated a lot of my friends, like, hey, let's go to IIT. Guys, it's going to be biggest institutions, like, crazy guys are there, geeks are there. Let's go and check it out. They call it as one of the premier institutions in India. We have no idea. We convinced the college to pay us some money from their pockets, and we went there. But trust me, it gave me a lot of exposure. Okay, hey, that guy's better than me. They're doing all these things, maybe robo competitions, that competition, paper presentation competition. I like, dude, what is this publication? That's like very new thing for me as a guy from a tier 2 city. And we never thought about, okay, I should do a publication. And these kids are doing like, wow, presentations. And I never thought about doing these presentations. So the meaning of that is trying to have an early exposure is very important. Because more, I would say, inside the cage you are, so you are less exposed. So try to go out, try to be in the part of these competitions where you will be able to get a more exposure to what people are trying to do. And then you may fail in few years, you may start crappy in the first beginnings, but it's totally fine. And that's where we all begin. If everything was so smooth, things would have been fantastic in the world, right? That's the way you all start. So I mean to tell you is like, you can be a part of the competition. They're very important. So I'll definitely look for those things when I'm getting a resume. Okay, hey, how many competitions you've been part of it? Because I've seen people. I was part of a few of the competition judging committees. People just toil their day in, day out. I was in Indore a few years back where the Baha happens. It doesn't matter which it's a girl or a boy. I've seen like girls working all over the night, and the temperatures were like 8 degrees Celsius. I was like, God damn, dude, what motivates you to work? And that's the dedication. That's what kind of prepares you mentally to get yourself ready, get yourself confidence into it. So be a part of competitions. If you're being a part of competitions from the wholehearted, I feel all these projects, software tools, exposure to domain, everything automatically get built up. Okay, so try to be in these competitions, be as early as possible. So I believe that's the greatest way. If you do not have any possible opportunities for research at your college, or involvement of deep tech at your college. Okay, so these competitions are the greatest way. Build a smaller teams, participate in them. Don't worry if you fail. It's totally fine. That's all the way we all start, right? If you are in a comfort zone, nothing else can happen, right? You got to start failing. So be a part of the competitions. It could be for the software guys, like a lot of other sort of competitions just happen online. So you could be hackathons and makeathons. There are so many of those things that are happening, right? So there are a lot of web portals nowadays. They're very famous. You could be a part of those web portals too, and take this coding competitions and stuff like that. So more you compete, maybe I heard something like Kaggle, I'm sorry if I spelled it wrong, Code Chef, or maybe any of those competitions, right, where Hacker Rank, Hacker Earth, they kind of competitions. Be there and have your resume, have those things on your resume. This is something very interesting. I've came across some of the hiring managers at Honeywell. recently they're trying to build a sort of a hiring process into a place to hire students from these backgrounds who are involved projects, who are involved in competitions and stuff like that. So it means that people at industry also trying to look to the way of hiring from those things. So that's what I mean. So you got to have those competitive edge, and it means you will have better exposure before you graduate. And then the few more things here, have publications. So it means if you have publications, it's really, really great, and they carry a lot of weightage. It means to publish one paper, it's just not easy, right? It's very, very challenging to publish it in a one paper. It means when you're trying to publish that paper, so you have just toiled your day in, day out, and you've spent like 500, 400 hours of work to make that one publication happen, correct? So it means that time you're put in there is just given you a reward of learning, and it has given you a reward of experience that no goddamn guy can give you, right? So the outcome is a publication, but the income to that is a profile building, right? So that's what I see in some of the winning resumes whom I have helped. And obviously do more internships. That's very important. More internships you do, I would say more exposure you get. Currently the situation is tough, and earnings for the companies are also very bad. And you may not expect too much of incentives or like stipends and stuff like that, but definitely it all for you right now before you graduate is not earning possibly, it's possibly learning. So more you learn and more exposure you have, more projects and more certificates of those internships you have, it means more time you have spent in yourself in doing those things. That's pretty much as an overall exhaustive list of things in a summary what I wanted to share it across. So the one last thing is what it sort of expresses in overall with all my discussions till now is your commitment. Okay, so it just expressed your commitment for all your learning and all your academics, that what you want to be, right? So if you're not doing any of these things, Gautam, I studied mechanical engineering. I know how much free time we have. I know when I studied for my internals. I know when I studied for my examination. I know how I did my assignments. I know how much time I had, like really. Yes, really we had a lot of time. So what it means is if you're not committing yourself in not doing any of these things, don't expect anything more, right? So there are lakhs of engineering, the statics available somewhere. What not talk about it, right? There are like 12 lakh seats, and then there are 6 lakh students get admission. There are like about 80% of the people are qualified. Who cares, right? Who cares about it? Let's try to fix it, right? If you are trying to be in the competitive world, because guys, you're in a mess up if you're graduating this year or next year. It's just compellingly competitive. So if you don't have things which is strongly pushes somebody to see your resume, they're going to be tough times. And if you pass 1 year, if you pass one more year, then your resume becomes older and older. It becomes more tougher to start your career. Okay, so don't get into the trap of your 9th semester, your 10th semester after graduation. You have a lot of time when you're in engineering. I know because I studied that too, right? Use that as best as possible because you're committed to take that engineering, right? And if you're not, just leave it and do something else. It's just totally fine, right? And it doesn't matter because ending up after 4 years and messing up the 5th year and getting screwed up in the 6th year, what we can do really? Frustration, anger, anxiety, just social challenges, right? No. So if you sort of compel yourself and do all these things, I goddamn bet you that people will line up to hire you. Who doesn't want a good guy, right? Who doesn't want the best engineer, right? So, in people say that people are getting crores of packages. So why? Because, best, right? So nobody want to live best kids out in the market, because even it's for me, I would pay another few thousands more on the salary, maybe add up more incentives for them to hire them into our company. So if you see at Decibels, we were a team of 4 people when the beginning of pandemic in 2000, in April 2020. So now we are about 25 engineers altogether. I could just not stop myself when I looked at these resumes, and are amazing, and people who are working with us are fantastically great, and kind of commitment they show to us. All these things, when I'm trying to talk about this, is all because their resumes which I looked into. and also the kind of commitment they're trying to show, and what is that something they're trying to do, and that possibly can make you to also get hired into a place. So how did we hire? Because they were great minds, they were great people to commit something on for, and that's how we were able to hire them into Decibels in these last few months. So, and also I've supported a lot of other students too, and how did they start? Exactly, they have something built to eye on the projects, and I can just share it across a lot of the students who have texted me, hey Suraj, because I've done these projects, my resume was like so amazingly accepted, and people appreciated me doing these projects. That's what it is important for, right? I mean, that's what is really required. What makes it gets your job is important, not something which is out of that, right? So keep doing that, and overall, in a summary, if I can just bring everything into the picture, have more than academics, as we discussed. Really important. Have more than academics. So projects and softwares and tools are compellingly needed. Domain orientation. Start consulting with your seniors. Connect to people on LinkedIn. Talk to them. Figure out what is this called damn domain. If you don't know, it's just totally fine. If you know everything, what is the requirement, right? So you wouldn't be just talking to me or being in this live session. You would be possibly somewhere else. That's a need, right? You need to talk to people, figure out, hey dude, what industry you're working in? Okay, what exactly your role is? What softwares do you use? What sort of projects you've been involved in? What domain is that? Get something out of them. Try to see what they're trying to do it in. The same way you visit a lot of job portals, see what is the openings for like 0 to 2 years of experienced engineers. See all the like domains, domain names, software, skill sets, specific skill sets, all these things. And that's how, okay, I don't have these things, goddamn, how do I put them onto my resume, right? That's how you start to, compete with yourself by looking into these things into place. Be a part of competitions. Never ever forget that, okay? Be a part of competitions. If you're not in competitions, build a team. I know it's challenging. It takes money. Nothing can happen free. If things can happen free and different, right? We would be competing for the job. And things takes time. Things take money. Things take efforts. Things take patience. So stick to them when you start something with it. Yeah. So publications are important, as I told about. And one more important thing: analytical skills. I can't explain this whole need of analytical skills. It's just the way how you look at things and analyze them. Okay, if you're able to put them some math into it and get a right idea why this is the answer for this, why this cannot be like this. Why did this guy have done a solution in this way? Maybe like those things which you can think analytically, applying a bit of mathematics into it, and take those decisions into account. That's what I would say as analytical skills. That could be another live session. Let's not talk about it right now. Internships are very important. Take them in as much as possible. I know it's not that easy to get internships. That's where Decibels is helping a lot of people out there to take up internships. So we have amazing programs which I know it's not something I would say right to charge something for that, because as I said, nothing can be free. We put a lot of time and efforts, my time, my engineer's time, the whole company's time into it. So all it matters is, does it matters to put a skill on your resume? And if you could spend some money on something else, why can't you spend money on this? Exactly, right? So there is possible opportunities like how Decibels is offering. You can take up those internships which really vet you on your skills, on the projects, which matters on your resume. Okay, so be part of internships. If you don't get an industry, and you can be a part of our LMS platforms where you'll be able to pick up these internships. And one last important thing, as I also said in the past, commitment. And I mean, it's just all it requires. All these things above will just come as a derivative of the commitment. So be committed to what you have chosen, because you have chosen to be a graduate engineer. You've chosen to be serving, right, as an engineer. So it basically pays you money, which serves your family, which serves the whole country in a bigger picture, which serves the whole society. Maybe if you develop a good technology into the industry, into the market, it could do a lot of things, right? So it means you've chosen what you want to be. You've chosen that you wanted to be an engineer, right? And that's why you're toiling your 4 damn years, and don't waste them. And never ever waste them, because I'll tell you, if you waste them, there's a pain waiting for you on your 9th semester and 10th semester. I mean, everybody's trying to get a job. You're not getting a job, and it is tough, right? Don't do that. Give that commitment as much as possible, and by that way, I promise you, if you have all these things on your resume, there is no way you get rejected for something. There is no way, because it's so needed, right? I mean, you're just on top. Okay, your resume is having skills, it's having experience, because you meant all these projects, you put number of hours of these projects. Now, goddamn, that is just above for everybody else. It's just above all the competitiveness and other guys have, right? So you have that competitive advantage just to fight that situation. Okay, so what I meant is, don't worry whether you land in a specific area, but right now all you have to think is how I would be better prepared. Okay, how I am more skilled, how I'm more competitively advantageous in my skills to fetch that opportunity. So if you do have that, I'll promise you there is nothing you have to worry about, just nothing. Okay, and I think interviews just land for you. Have a good networking skills. That's another area where I could just talk about in another live session, maybe in upcoming weeks. So that's another area of scope to discuss about networking. So if you, first of all, let's have that first resume to go and pitch for somebody, right? So I believe that's pretty much what I want to talk today, and I believe that's what I want to interact and be and outspout about all these things. So I believe that kind of meant something for you. That I believe provided some insights to think what you could do. Okay, so if you could just plan out all these things and break down them into a smaller goals, you can have a big dream. You can have an amazingly big dream. You want to work for Ferrari? Great. You want to work for Mercedes F1? Fantastic. You want to work for Apple? You want to work for Microsoft? Goddamn great. But break them into our smaller goals, achievable ones. The big one comes always with the smaller steps. Start to take them in right now, and that's what you mean with all of these things. Okay, and if you're right there too to get those jobs. Awesome. That's pretty much, guys, from my side what I wanted to share on this live first session. I don't know it was good for you. I don't know if I was boring for you. I'm just trying to put across all my experiences which I have gone through helping people. So I believe I've done that. So let's take some questions here. Okay, so after 12 I took 2 years of gap in engineering. No, it really doesn't matter. If you ask me, people are not even bothering about looking at a graduate to hire you. I think that's the new thing which is going to be coming into the industry. Startups are not really looking for somebody who have a great graduate resume. No way. So it's all they're looking for is, have you got good skills? So don't worry if you have a gap. It really doesn't matter. If you have failed in some subject, it's just okay for some companies. They have damn HR policies. Who cares about them, right? Okay, if you have failed, you can't attend. You should have 70% aggregate. I don't really like that. So I think the startup culture is just killing all of that. Okay, don't worry if you have backlogs. I think it's totally fine if you have even a year in between for some purpose, honest purpose, and if you picked up something great, it just really doesn't matter. I mean, it's totally fine. And I think if you have enough reasoning behind that, it's great. It really doesn't matter. So, okay, it's better to quarantine. Good to see you. Okay, great. So I'm just seeing for some questions. Guys, amazing, and thanks a lot everybody for joining in. If you have no questions or drop in any questions. So that's pretty much on my side. Okay. So if you have no questions right now, so you could possibly exit too from the session. So I'm just trying to address some of the questions here. If you stay back, it's great. Maybe there are some amazing things more than what we talked in the monologue sort of a thing, that I could possibly answer. So Varun, I think that specifically on EV, maybe I could just answer you in the other live session. Yeah, I'll definitely try to add them into IGTV. Sure, I'm just trying for the first time. Let's see, I could do that best. Yeah. So different companies use different softwares for their work. How to choose a particular software? Very good question. So yeah, see, different companies use different softwares. There is no doubt on that. But at par, there are like not many tools for a one specific sector. Maybe there are 3 at max or 4 at max, usually and majorly used. If you say 100% of the companies, if you say 30% is used by one, other 40% you're left with other 30% for other, three softwares to be used. So you could be always trying to have that 2 where it fills your like 60% or over 50% of the market. That should be sufficient. And as for tool is concerned, it's just a tool. The domain is important, because if you could just do it in this tool, you could do it in the other tool too. It just takes like a quick time to figure out how to do that tool. Is Python software helpful for us? Yeah, I could tell that if it's useful for, I think I could see in the market that there's a good demand for it, but to have that skill on Python, yeah. So, okay, do grades really matter when it comes to resume? It really matters for few companies, because they have a HR policy, like just not name some companies. They have like, okay, you gotta have 70% aggregate. You don't have to have a backlog. Yeah, some companies they have HR policies. I mean, I think they will change for sure. There is no doubt on that. So, but a lot of other companies doesn't care about that, and I think they care about your learning, your skills, and your competitiveness. I think that's pretty much what is required. So grades, it do matter. I would say for certain needs, because if you're so careless about not meeting those numbers, it means that I think you could easily score like 60 plus, I believe, at least. But I'm okay if you failed at once, but and the next time you tried, you had that try and you scored. It really makes some sensible sense for sure to have an aggregate. Why? Because it's just not hey, I failed in every subject and I'm really good in something. You have everything to prove, it's really great. But if you don't have something to prove and not having skills, so not having grades, no, that's not something I would really suggest somebody. You got to be having a reasoning behind it, that it works the better way for you. So have good grades, it really helpful. It's like, as I told you, like you have 2 aces with you, okay? So the ace number 1 is your grades and ace number 2 is your skills, right? So if you have one, it's good, it's really good. So you should have that ace to be very stronger, made another compelling with that. So if that's the way you have, it's great. But if you don't have both, then I would not suggest that. That's not a good way of thinking, yeah. But try to have better grades. What's hard, scoring 60 at least, yeah. So you should be scoring. I think it's not too tough, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm commenting it bad. Okay, so let me just go through some more questions. Which field of mechanical domain you think are going to grow? See, everything is just going to grow, because I think some areas getting affected is because of robotics coming into a picture, automation coming into a picture, just scoop out those areas a little bit. But anything which is creative, anything which is complicated, which uses challenging of your brain, and I think those things are still not possible to be solved by computers. So, I mean, it's a very plain answer, but yeah, I think there are going to be an areas where you could just scoop them out and try to see for other areas, because it's just extensive list I could just go through. How much do you think formula student teams play in finding jobs and consider work experience? I would say like it plays a lot. It really plays a lot, because it's like a goddamn small industry at college, you have everything, right? Suspension, steering, chassis, braking, everything else, body, everything, right? So it's just another good thing as a small industry within your college itself. Excuse me on that. So yeah, it really matters. If you ask me, I love those guys who have formal student experiences. They are like goddamn crazily committed to the work. I just like those guys, because they toil their nights at night and they spend their days in there. So I'm really liking them. So in the resume, if I see that, I just go for it, yeah, most of the times. So I think it does really matter a lot. So great, I think, so that's pretty much in overall what I wanted to be sharing. I think if that's pretty much all the questions we have, I believe you liked the overall way I put across. I'm sorry if I'd be a little straightforward in doing things, but yeah, I'm trying to do as best as possible, yeah. So thank you very much, everybody, for being in there for all the time, and all the best for you, and keep rocking, keep pumping up your skills and have them amazingly great, and all the best. You could always follow up on Instagram and keep ourselves great with Decibels, lms.decibels. There are fantastic internships out there. They're starting next month on November 2. You could be there. You could pick some skills if you're free enough. Yeah.